All right, welcome back to the stream. In the last video, I got my Dragon Titan, and I need to do a little prep work before we get into my Regirock battle, because I have like 30 something Ultra Balls left, and I also don't have enough rocks to even summon Regirock. But now would also be a good time to pick up a pillow swine. I think that, well, I think I need to redo my team, but I also need to get a Pokemon that knows Dig. And maybe we'll pluck some berries while we wait for that egg to hatch. But yeah, the last video I basically used Sylveon for all of my legwork, and when I was preparing for the stream, knew that Sylveon was going to be my lead. And so for the thumbnail, I was trying to figure out what to do. Oh, perfect. So I googled buff Sylveon, which I don't recommend. There's certain adjectives that you just can't put in front of Pokemon on the internet. And now I just inspired all of you to look. It's honestly, it's not that bad, but it was still a lot cringier than I should have known. I was thinking like, surely someone has like put together some like Chad drawing of Sylveon, which is true. I then Googled Chad Sylveon and found someone took like the Chad meme outline and like reskinned it so it looked like the Sylveon colors and ribbons and stuff. But at the end of the day, I didn't actually like how that even looked, so I didn't bother. But yeah, we have actually quite a few things to restock, because besides picking up rocks for Regirock, we're also going to go back to the steel farm, and we're going to get metal coats for Great Balls. And then what I'm doing right now is collecting life force from my ghosts. Oh yeah, I just hatched you. So that we can craft Ultra Balls. Oh, Sheldon. Shieldon. I can't get Shieldon's name right. Alright. Are you going to give me charcoal or life force? That's pretty convenient. Hey, it's nighttime. You should be happy, Sableye. We pick you up and we put you down. And you're happy. Cool. Alright, now we can pick up our pillow swine so we have someone who can dig rocks. Oh, let's heal you up too. Not actually, you're not really going to go into battle, but that's okay. I've been playing a lot of Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. It was one of the free Star Wars games available on Prime Day. And the game has one heck of a learning curve. Well, also, before I even get into that part of it, I want to talk about the fact that it's called Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. And I've never played it before. I was really interested in the game because I had always played Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. So, for some reason, I thought that Jedi Knight 2 was the sequel to Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. And it's not. Jedi Knight Jedi Academy comes after Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. I think the naming for the game's series it was originally called Dark Forces, and then they called it like Jedi Knight Dark Forces or something like that. And so because they wanted to transition away from the name Dark Forces and into the name Jedi Knight, because they thought more people would identify that with that, which is, I would say, very true. But no, then the transition's complete and they took Dark Forces out of the name. Man, it is like its own game to try and figure out where to snap to. Oh, there we go. So yeah, and then after Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, which is a sequel to Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 or whatever that one's called, then they just dropped the 2 and were just like Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. So I'm playing the prequel to the game I grew up with. And okay, now we'll talk about it. It's hard. You can do a lot in the game. and it sucks. I think a big part of it sucking is actually the fact, while we wait for those steel types to get items, we're going to do some digging. You play through the first 2 levels without any lightsaber or force abilities. Can I put snow back? I probably will run out of snow, but we'll try it. And so you have once you get a lightsaber, the game gets significantly more bearable because you automatically block a certain percentage of shots based on how far you are through the game. And by the time you get to the end, if you just like stand in front of someone, you won't get shot by anything. But you do have to like stand in front of. And just like that, I'm out of snow. Damn, they can still shoot you in the back. But, oh my gosh. So, as with most things that I like casually pick up, I also look at speedruns for the games to see what it's like. And the speedruns for any of the Jedi Knight games are just completely unhinged. It's wild. It tells you how long it takes you to beat a level and how long your playthrough has lasted at the end of every level. And I actually don't remember what mine is, but I know that I probably spend as much time on one level as the world record speedrun. The world record speedrun is like 30 minutes or something. All right, let's look at how many rocks we have. Got a lot of magnets. 56, I think that's enough. Oh, we weren't supposed to jump there, but that's okay. All right, here we go. Steel. Soft sand. Great. I should fill in everything with... Oh, hardstone. I just got a bunch of those with soft sand because I definitely just get those from all my steelixes. But yeah, so like the first level in the game, in the speedrun, is beaten in like 2 minutes. Full speedrun's like 30 minutes. And it's actually like, it's funny because even though I have no comprehension of the speedrunning strats, it is the kind of game where you can skip. Like, you can skip as much as you want. There are very few points in the game that require you to like move through in a certain order. And that gatekeeping mechanic for kind of keeping you on track is just killing certain Imperial Remnant officers who have door keys so that you can enter doors. But if you're not in a scenario where you need to run through that door, then you don't even have to worry about that. And there's a couple points in the speedrun that are really cool where he essentially throws out a probe droid. Well, I think it's like a training droid. It's a little floating ball that shoots lasers, and it'll like follow you around and shoot at enemies to help you, which is a super cool thing to add into the game. But in the speedrun, you just jump on it, and you can stand on it. And so the speedrunners will throw it out there and then just use it. It follows you to just gain height, and they just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And it's like, okay, why even worry about getting the gate open or getting the door open and getting the door key when you can just like literally go over this massive wall that was never designed for you to be able to go over it. So anyways, highly recommend looking at the Jedi Knight speedruns. They're wild. I mean, on some level, if you haven't played the games, you're just going to look at it and be like, okay, cool. This guy is just like booking it through the levels. But like in the first 10 seconds, he literally, the first stage, he runs so fast. I don't understand how you get this much speed. But he runs so fast that he skips the entire stage. He literally runs and jumps from the landing pad that you start out on all the way to the final like area. Also, another really cool thing about the Jedi Knight series is that it's all like Luke is an ancillary character to most of the video games that were coming out in this time period. I played Shadows of the Empire on stream, and Luke makes an appearance in that game as well. And it's always so fascinating, like to remember that time period before the prequels were finished and well before Disney and the sequels and everything that has come from that, where it was still very much the extended canon, which I never really got into. But like my exposure to them are these games. And that's where it's really fascinating, because like Rogue Squadron and Luke Skywalker appear in all of these games. And I know that Rogue Squadron got their own game, and I'm really curious to know how much of Rogue Squadron's game overlaps with either of these two other games, because in both Shadows of the Empire and Jedi Knight Jedi Outcast, you get to points in the game where they basically are like, all right, we need Rogue Squadron's help, and then they just like show up and shoot things. And it would be really cool to, and I should look it up. It'd be really cool to know if Rogue Squadron does the same thing, where it's just like, oh, here's a side mission. You can go do the thing that you did in the other games. But yeah, going back to, I guess, Luke being a side character in all of these games, it's really interesting because it shows a Luke Skywalker that canonically doesn't exist anymore. I feel like, based on what's happening with the Star Wars TV shows right now, there's basically no way that they're going to bring in these core characters from 20-year-old video games, right? Like that makes no sense for Disney to do. They're just going to ignore them, and they're going to write over them, which is that's just what I expect to happen. So then you go back and you get to see, like, this is Luke Skywalker in his Jedi temple teaching people and going out and going on these side missions where he needs to, like, oh, there's a Jedi that fell to the dark side, and he goes off and he fights him. And just like these elements of it where you're like, I think what's so delightful to it is the fact that because it wasn't committed to like a giant movie that everyone and their dog watched in theaters, it feels a lot more like personal, that it's like, oh, like Luke did these side things, these like inconsequential in the grand scheme of the galaxy moments where you just sort of show up and interact with him, and you get to see him as a Jedi Master training new Jedi, like leading the Jedi Order, these things that I assume Disney will eventually show in TV shows and will have nothing in common with what was portrayed in the over 20-year-old video games. There's elements of the game that are like crazy details. The game design in Jedi Outcast is really interesting because every place feels like a very real place, and it can make it confusing to actually go through the game blind because every place like feels like a real place, and so there's tons of doors that are just locked and you just can't go in them until like the end of the game, and suddenly you're on the other side of the door and you open it and you connect the two places and you're like, oh, now I can go here. But it's really weird because it makes it feel a lot more real, like these are legitimate areas and not just like made purely for a map design. But it also has the downside of being like asking the question of like, I'm not really sure where I need to go next. But then as you play through, you kind of learn how the game, you kind of understand that that's how the levels are designed. You start to learn the level design in a way. So you're like, okay, well, I need to make sure that make sure there's no vents that I need to go through, or maybe there's a door that I missed that is the next area. So it's really interesting in that regard too. While it's nighttime, I wonder if Umbreon's going to give me something. Yeah. Dark energy. Duskull, you want to give me some life force? Score. There's probably like one person listening to this right now who's played Jedi Outcast, so thank you for listening. It's funny because I like the game is like, so it just sucks you in. You know, you sit down, you start playing it, you're like you just want to keep doing it and keep trying and keep getting better at it. But it's also one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to stream this game because I am like, even at this point in the game, I am just that bad at it. Like, I die all the time everywhere. I don't think it would be enjoyable for anyone to watch. I got a Victini in Sword and Shield this week. No, come on. I booted up my Sword and Shield file where I have one gym badge, and I just punched in the code. Yeah, Sassy Turtwig. I'm playing Platinum right now. I have a Torterra. That's awesome. All right, let's do a materials count. Hard stone, metal coat, life force. This is not enough. Well, plenty of hard stone, but metal coat. You know, after I catch all the Regis, maybe I should work on a potion setup. Yeah, Torterra's awesome. I'm doing a ground type run, and so I've built a lot around around Torterra just as a tank for my team. But yeah, besides sinking hours of my life into Jedi Outcast, I watched Nosferatu, which is it's like 100-year-old movie about vampires. I think that it's like Count Orlok is I think the name of the vampire in that movie. It's widely credited as the movie that created the myth that vampires die from sunlight. Because before it was just like weaken them. Here's your vampire lore. Originally, Dracula would just be weakened by sunlight, but still like fully functioning and not disintegrate. But like the key plot moment, spoilers, 100-year-old movie for Nosferatu, is that like someone reads in this old book, like, oh, if there's a maiden that's blood tastes so good that vampires forget to go back to bed, then they just die in sunlight. That's what happens. and then I'm pretty sure the woman dies anyways. That's probably not true. I'm probably just misremembering it. But it's a short movie. I think it's like an hour long. Maybe it's 90 minutes. But it's really interesting to go back and look at like old media. Also, by the way, the original soundtrack for the movie, parts of it have been lost. And like, so there's different soundtracks for the movie. It's now just like free use. It's so like there's no copyright for Nosferatu that's been maintained or anything. So people have made their own soundtracks for it and uploaded it to like and like it, not that they did it for the internet, but they have shared it online. And so if you just Google Nosferatu, you'll find all of these different, like, it's the same movie, but they'll have like different color correction done to it, and they'll have different soundtracks. I just think it's unfortunate that I can't get like the original experience, but just a heads up, if you want to go watch a really old movie, just know that like you're not really gonna get the original soundtrack for it. But yeah, it's really interesting because even for a movie that's 100 years old, where like a lot of it you look at it and it's like, okay, like these look like stage actors, they're over emoting, but it is a silent picture, so of course you're going to over emote. Like the camera work's going to be for the most part very straightforward, right? It's old-timey, so you're just going to like set it up in a tripod and then again put your stage actors in front of it and they're going to over emote. And then it's going to cut to black and your audience is going to read some text. So like obviously it's still, I don't think that's a failing of the movie. That's obviously just the era when the movie was made. But then you get these really interesting scenes that are just genuinely creepy. Like just like you look at some of these shots and you're just like, wow. Like you're like, that's iconic. Like maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Nosferatu was the first movie ever to have like a silhouette of the villain creeping, like the villain's shadow creeping up the stairs. And it's just one of those things where like you see it and you're like I've seen this as a gag in Looney Tunes from like, you know, Looney Tunes is already 20, 30, 40 years after Nosferatu happened. Another really interesting part of going back and watching Nosferatu is that because it was set in the 1920s, a key plot element of it is actually a pandemic. Because it was, I think, the Spanish flu 100 years ago. And also a key part about this movie that I find really interesting, that again, I'm just not smart. I didn't realize that the movie's German. I guess I just assume like, oh, like I just assume Hollywood, I guess, you know, it's like, it's an American movie, you know, and it's silent. So I guess if you go look for Nosferatu on the internet, you'll also find that there's different translations of it into English for all of the subtitling. But yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, this is and then it sort of connected, right? I was sitting there, I was thinking through, and I was like, oh, this is a German movie made in the 1920s. This is like culturally around the time of World War One and pre-World War II. It sort of, and then I was sitting there thinking about that, and I was like, oh, wait a second. This is a movie. Ooh, should I make 84 Pokeballs? Yeah. This is a movie about a strange, wealthy foreigner preying upon German women. And when he arrives in town, he sneaks into town. He gets on a boat. He kills everyone on the boat. Boat rolls into the dock, empty. They go in. They find coffins with like rats chewing on them. And then they go to the captain's log, and they read about like, oh, one of the crew members started to go insane, and then they're like, oh, one of the crew members fell sick. Oh, potential plague. And then they sound the alarm and they're like, oh my gosh, plague, everyone go into lockdown. And the town, like, it spreads to the town. And you're just sitting here and you're like, okay, this is a movie about an ugly, wealthy foreigner bringing the plague into a country and attacking the country's women. And you're like, and it's, what's really interesting is that even though that sort of like nationalist message is present in the movie, this like beware of the other, I didn't see anything online. I went online and I was like, okay, well, surely I'm not the first person to watch this movie and think, is it anti-Semitic? And I didn't see anything really discussing it online. So apparently, I guess, I'm not an expert in this, but apparently it wasn't, I don't know. Apparently there aren't strong enough connections to it. One refutation of the idea is that the screenplay was written by a German Jew. But it was just really interesting because like the world wasn't as connected, even just going back 100 years. And so it's very easy to see why a story could sort of just default into what we could look back on. And the term for it in your history classes is presentism, where you essentially project present day frameworks and ideologies into people who lived in the past, which is always creates, well, not always, I should say, but the majority of the time creates flawed results because we have our own perspectives, our own values that have been shaped by, you know, the events that separate us from those people. And so I look at that movie and I say like, oh, like once I put like are there elements of the story that were meant to like be a direct attack upon a specific nation, like a specific race of people? And apparently the experts say no. So, but anyways, that's my Nosferatu rabbit hole that I went down. Let's check my bags again. Metal coat. I watched another movie since my last stream. Oh, you just gave me something. That's Blade Runner. I've seen Blade Runner 2049. I've never actually seen the original Blade Runner, which, again, interestingly enough, there's like 3 different edits of Blade Runner, which I didn't know about. Because like I looked it up and it was like, oh, do you want to watch like Blade Runner's theatrical release? Do you want to watch the director's cut, or do you want to watch the final cut? I was like, oh, I just want to watch Blade Runner. But it's pretty easy to figure out. The theatrical release has a different ending. I didn't watch the theatrical release. I watched the final cut because apparently the final cut is essentially the director's like preferred vision for the movie, where he did his own director's cut and then again did another director's cut, but he couldn't call it director's cut 2 because then people would be confused with, you know, it's like the Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast versus versus Jedi Academy all over again. And it's really interesting because I walked away from the movie and my like immediate thoughts were, I need to watch this movie again. It was so like immersive, and it was so interesting, and apparently in the theatrical release there's a lot more voiceover because I guess producers were worried that the audiences were dumb, and the final cut takes that out, and so there is like a large part of the movie where you feel like you need to analyze it as you're watching it to make sure that you're like that which like is fitting because it is sort of like it's a noir film, so it's going to have this like detective mystery elements to it, even though it is about like a futuristic, you could call it like a detective film, you could also just call it like a cop film if you wanted to. I'm sure both of those buckets probably offend the diehard Blade Runner fans, so no, probably not. They're probably lovely people. There you go. I just saved myself an angry comment. But it was really good. I loved how immersive it was, and I do agree with the decision to remove voiceover, because whenever you get these moments, and not a lot of movies, I'm under the impression that not a lot of movies really do this now, but they don't have a lot of scenes where it's silent and there's not a lot of dialogue, and you're just sort of watching someone do something. You're watching a process unfold in front of you, and I think that those pauses and those moments are where you're asking your audience, you're inviting your audience to ask, like, what is the protagonist thinking? What are they feeling? Like, what are they doing? Right? It's a surprisingly, I think, in like immersive way to do something, instead of just having like, oh, well, you know, we're going to have some side characters so that you can always hear. There's a sounding board. Someone can always think out loud, right? Which can be necessary in film. Obviously, it can be done well, but it can also be a crutch. So I really do need to sit down and watch Blade Runner again. I absolutely loved the third act, where it was and what happened with it. So I don't want to craft Stardust. I don't even want to craft Pokeballs. Here we go. All right. Here we go. 52 Ultra Balls. Progress. Though I think one of the really fun parts about watching a good movie is how it gets you like really excited to talk about and watch even more movies, because you sort of realize like, you can do a lot with a movie can do a lot. It can do a lot and prod a lot of thinking. I definitely feel like I came out of the movie with some half-baked thoughts, though, which is why I have not gotten into what are some of the more, like, philosophical questions that the movie proposes. Oh, it's night? You're not happy? No. I think my Umbreon needs a little bit more time to be happy. I went camping again. Went up into the mountains, brought a canoe, went out on a lake, a reservoir up in the mountains. It was super cool. Went on a hike, but one of the coolest parts of that camping trip was actually that I saw another bald eagle, which it's like the second bald eagle I've seen this summer, which is I should say like in the last 3 months, which is just, I mean, I haven't seen bald eagles where I live, so suddenly seeing them up in the mountains is super cool. And it was also really cool because it was just hanging out around the water, probably hoping to catch a fish. And when it sat in a tree for like a solid 30 minutes, but when it would fly around the lake, you could hear the flaps, and I think that really like put into perspective for me how big bald eagles can get. To just be out on the water and to just hear like just a flap, you're just like because you know there's tons of little birds in my neighborhood, but they're completely silent. They fly around and they're tiny. They probably weigh like as much as a couple toothpicks. They got nothing going on for them. And then you see this massive bald eagle and you're like, whoa. So that was super cool. It's something that, it's one of those things where you're just like, I don't know if I'm ever going to see something like this again. Oh, metal coat from Delibird. That's very convenient. I think I've mentioned a couple times, maybe I have not, that I'm working on my own aquarium for my office. Well, I completed it. It's a foot by foot by foot cube. It's 5.5 gallons, and I bought slate rock and just like I made a little I made a little box to go, like a column to go in the back corner of the tank, and then just stacked slate rock on it to build the slate rock pillar. And I have some spider wood attached to it, just like with its gnarly roots sticking out in the water. And I did all of that really so that well I did all of that and then realized like, well, I don't want to put this in my office as my office currently stands. My office is a spare room in my house that when the pandemic first happened, I remember like vividly, speaking of movies, like it truly was something that you would have seen in a post-apocalyptic movie, because that day we were at the client's office, so we weren't even in our office. It was our audit team at the client's office, and we went down for lunch. The client's office has its own like cafeteria and food court, and like no one was really like talking. Obviously there were some conversations going on, but the vast majority of everyone there was just staring at the TVs in the room, which were set to the news channels, and they were just like, and this is the part where it's like, you know how in movies whenever a TV's on, it's only telling you relevant information. Or like TVs are of necessity generally used as a plot device. And so it's just like, oh, someone has the TV on in the background, but it conveniently is talking about relevant information. I mean, it's not like our lunch break was short. So we were down there, news was on, and then it goes to, we had it on, I think our state's news, and they broadcasted one of like our state leaders, elected officials, reading their COVID response statement. And part of it was that all of the restaurants were going to shut down their in-person, like their in-person seating starting on like the next day. And so, or that after, it was like end of the week or something like that. And so the next day we went out, instead of eating in the cafeteria, we went out and we sat in a restaurant and we ate, and we were just sitting there talking about how we couldn't do that anymore, that it was going to be closed. And then like that evening, we all just took our monitors and our laptops and like all of our equipment, and we divvied up the snacks that we had bought for the audit team. And we all just like packed up our cars and we drove to our houses. And so I needed to work in my house, so I just went to like Target, or maybe it was Costco. I think it was Target. And I bought a plastic folding desk, like one used for camping. And I brought it home and I set it up in my spare room. And that is what I have been working in for the last 2 years. That is actually where I stream from now, off of the same desk. And with my aquarium done, I didn't want to put it on this temporary desk. 2 years of temporary use, you know. So in preparation for my aquarium, we've started getting the parts for building my own custom desk, and I've painted all of the walls in my office to like a light gray and a darker gray trim for all of like the baseboards and around the doors. And I have part of my desk, the like drawers that are going to be on the like under my desk, I have it assembled off to my right. And so that's the current project. I'm in a construction site. I should actually clean up all the paint stuff I have on the floor. But yeah, I'm going to once I get the desk done, we're gonna redo the lighting, which lighting really easy to redo because it's just taking lights out and putting a better light in. We're actually going to wallpaper the ceiling, but we're going to pay someone to wallpaper the ceiling for us, because I would hate to do that. So that's something that I don't really count on my to-do list because I'm paying someone else to do it. But yeah, we're going to have the entire office done, and then I can put my 5-gallon aquarium together. all of this just so I can put some freshwater shrimp on my desk. Metal coat is still one of the hardest materials to accumulate, because even my like I could take my Registeel and I could put it down, because Registeel is a mono steel type Pokemon, and so part of you would be like, oh yeah, like Registeel would be a great source of this stuff. Unfortunately, that's not true, because all of the Regis will also drop Ancient Powder, is I think what it is. You don't have anything for me, do you, Steelix? And because they all drop Ancient Powder as well, they have basically the same drop rate. Yeah, I don't have enough life force. Okay. We're getting real close. Okay, we're actually like... We just need like 15 more Great Balls, and then we can get out of here. Do you have something for me now? No. Okay. I'm thinking after I catch the Regis. Oh, by the way, I mean, if you're watching this anywhere near its actual premiere date, there's another version of PokeWilds came out last week, version 0.8.4, which doesn't actually change any of the gameplay. It's all more of the back end. It's supposed to help make the code a bit more efficient, as I think it is. But you're not gonna, unfortunately. I think you'll have to go to Shear's. I forgot the name for it. But I don't even think he made a YouTube announcement for it, because it is such a minor thing. But if you are someone who has a game that lags, maybe this will help. I see, this is the problem. I don't want to promise things that aren't true, and then you'll get mad at either Sheer. Well, yeah, you'll get mad at Sheer for it. But it should be quality of life improvements, so maybe it diminishes any problems you've had with running this game on your system. Oh my gosh. So last stream I talked about how my nephew got Pokemon Essentials, they got RPG Maker XP, and then I put together a folder of Pokemon Essentials stuff, and I sent it over to him so that he could start working on his own Pokemon game, and that's officially started. We had a phone call yesterday. I showed him like the bare bones of RPG Maker, where I was like, okay, this is how you make a map, and this is how you make it so when you start the game you teleport to your map, and this is how you make a door so that you can move from inside maps or to outside maps and back. And I'm so excited to see what he does with it. I just realized I didn't tell him to start small. It's like the #1 mistake I see with people who make their own Pokemon games. Okay, so how much material do you farm out of this, and how much do you have currently? I'll show you my inventory right now. I am doing all of this. So I'm only here for the metal coats, and just while I'm waiting for my Steelixes, which I only get half the time. While I'm waiting for them to respawn, I'll go just down another row. The Delibirds are just a bonus. My materials, I mean, I have a ton of grass and dry soil. The stuff that you can actually like terraform with, I've gotten a ton of. And what I like to do is actually pull that stuff from bodies of water so it looks more natural, so there's not just weird holes in the middle of it. Things that I haven't really focused on, I don't have as much of. So like miracle seeds, honey, poison barbs. So, but logs, I've chopped down a lot of trees, deforestation. And then dragon fangs, picked up a lot of those. Ancient powder, that's actually mainly for my Delibirds. Damp soil, soil from the lake, I have 1. And then lots of magnets, hard shells. only 4 metal coats. Again, it is but I mean, a lot of this stuff is to get Pokeballs, so I'm proud of my collection of these. And thanks. I appreciate the compliment. I definitely look at this map and you can tell, like, up here this is where I was like trying, and then down here is where I was like, no, enough with like these really nice squared off things. Like, let's make a grid. and I've stated this in other streams. I in the back of my mind, at some point, I will focus on like an aesthetically pleasing farm where it's not just about these guys that don't have anything. Where it's not just about getting as many materials as possible. I wonder how much Moo Moo milk I have. 184. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Have I ever had problems terraforming ledges? Yes. I can't guarantee whenever I try and do something with ledges that it'll face the direction I want it to. And I can't do corners. So yes, I definitely struggle with building ledges. Also, I'd like to be able to make my own waterfalls at some point, but that's not really something you can do right now. I think I started a map that I was going to use for tutorials, and then I just sort of realized, like, wait a second, I don't even, like, no one cares about seeing a map for tutorial. Well, for tutorials, for showing like biomes that work for Pokemon. And so I was like, let's just make a table. People can look at tables and they can read tables. Like, they don't have to listen to me talk through stuff and have to go back to try and remember it. And so I scrapped it. But when I was putting together this like really fun looking map, I tried to build my own ledges. And it was like I just want a wall, and I want it to bend here. I want it to be like a corridor you walk through. I hope that's not too much to ask. And it was too much to ask. So I just, at this point, I guess I don't plan on using ledges as decoration, where it's going to be something that I guess build around. Yeah, that's a nice idea. I don't know. It makes me I want to go back to the drawing board and try working with ledges again to see if maybe I was approaching it wrong. But I look at it and I think, like, what if when you make a ledge, the way you're facing will permanently dictate the way that like that ledge faces? And so if I'm facing down and I build a ledge, it'll be a ledge that I can hop down. Or if I'm facing up, it's a ledge that I can hop, I guess, like, I'm going to say up, but you know what I mean. I'm hopping down, but up in that direction. And then corners are just when you put a ledge piece at the intersection of other ledges. But, you know, I'm not a programmer, so I'm not sure what actually goes on into how the game processes that. So you've tried that. Okay, well, I guess that saves me trying to figure it out. So, okay, so what's my plan with Regirock? I think Registeel is going to be my lead for it. I think I'm just going to rely on... Maybe I'll beat it up a few times just to get some free XP. But past Regirock, I don't think... Or Registeel to help with my Regirock battle. I don't know if I have another Pokemon that I would really commit to. What I should do is get a Lucario. If I really, I should train up a Lucario, because Lucario would be amazing for that fight. And maybe I'll do that because it's super easy to use legendaries, or at least to use the Regis just as an XP farm. But right now, I haven't, honestly, for my team for Regirock, I haven't thought past using Registeel as my front man, taking all the hits, swapping in my Breloom. Breloom would actually be really good too, being a grass fighting type. Paralyzing it, and then just chucking 70 Ultra Balls. Oh, you want to see what happens when lava and water interact? Yeah, here, I'll dig for you. I'll connect them. Because that was a riveting stream. That was... I literally dug a lava river all the way out here and then covered it up. Alright, here's what happens when they touch. It's an ash and soil farm. Okay, actually, no. I'm not gonna leave it. Yeah, it's super cool. I love... I don't know if I can... There we go. That's gonna have to do for now. I love any environmental interaction in games, where it's just like it just makes the game feel... Oh look, no, not enough room. Sorry, I was. Do you see that? Do you see that ashen soil in the middle of the That's because of the tundra. That's because I took my lava river right past that ice hole, and those ice holes leak water, and so I had to go around it because I couldn't get the lava to flow past it without turning into ashen soil. So I guess it is right there. All right. Got anything for me? Nope. I think a key thing for catching a legendary, honestly, now that I've gone and tried, and now that I've been catching all of the Regis back to back to back to back, I've realized just how insane their catch rate is, and it makes me realize, like, duh, it took me like 2 streams to catch Mewtwo or more. Remember, but I just sort of thought, it's Brunt Force, I'll just go in and chuck a bunch of stuff. But now that I've looked at it, I've realized, like, it's absolutely critical to have some way of imposing a status effect. That you absolutely need everything that you can get when you go into these legendary encounters. Otherwise, you know, that's the difference between, like, throwing 20 Ultra Balls or 100. Yeah, do you think farmed items will be useful in multiplayer? I hope so. I don't know, you could do... you could try to think like is what could you do in multiplayer besides just trade items, right? Which that would be wild if this game got just like an online marketplace. You know, like you make online trading a thing in video games and people will just like devote their life to it. And they'll just like go all in on specific things and they'll go into the marketplace and they'll trade them up. So the you run into that issue of like, oh well, like what benefit does trading have in multiplayer? We're all on the same map, right? So I just spent some time over here chopping trees while you were breaking up ledges. Like, it doesn't really provide as tangible a benefit if we're on the same map and we could have just swapped places to get what we needed. But the bread and butter of this game is getting materials and crafting, so I really do hope that there's some element going into it, because it would be really fun to feel like you've made like your own special system. That like you are really good at and you can then leverage to get other items. Okay, I think I have enough great balls at this point, so now we go to get life force. Yeah, I've also heard that multiplayer is something that'll come in version 0.9. I think one of the devs shared. No, I think they were sharing pictures of NPCs. Maybe I was wrong. I'm under the impression maybe they shared. Well, okay, this is what it was. They've stated that that they have multiplayer working cohesively enough to do like battles in-game battles with each other. So, but yeah, if multiplayer, when I should say multiplayer comes to this game, I also want to set up a server. I want to do something where it's just an hour on the clock. You log into the map, you have an hour to build a team, and then you just have a tournament bracket, and you see who has the best team after an hour of hunting and training. Yeah, you mentioned building a land bridge to get to the edge of your maps. I want to put a teleportation pad on the edge of all of my maps. Oh, I keep forgetting that you're in this lineup. Shark. Okay, I think I'm gonna call it for tonight. Gonna go to bed, but we're in a pretty good place because we have enough great balls. Metal Coat is always rough. It's easier to get life force. So we'll turn those all into Ultra Balls. And next stream, we're going to be catching Regirock. So looking forward to it. Thanks for coming in, for watching with me, for talking with me. I'll catch you guys in the next stream. See you later.